knowing that chronic sleep loss, and particularly in night shift workers, is associated with high rates of diabetes 2, obesity, coronary heart disease, we should be having higher frequency health checks of those individuals to catch these conditions before they become chronic, uh, and including stress, of course. Knowing high rates of obesity, type 2 diabetes, what kind of food do we provide for our night shift workers? Well, it couldn't be worse. It's vending machines full of high fat, high sugar, and it's canteens full of, really high fat, high sugar meals. And I think it's about time we addressed that and provided our night shift work with protein rich, easy to digest foods, and move away from some of the really bad stuff that will enhance, our development of things like type 2 diabetes. I think education is critically important. So it's worth bearing in mind that we not only need to let individuals know about some of the consequences of working night shift or getting very little sleep on their health so they can make informed decisions, but we need to let their partners know what's going on. It's worth bearing in mind that in some sectors, the divorce rate is some sixfold higher in night shift workers compared to day shift workers doing the same job. Partners need to know that this person hasn't turned into a monster, but these behavioral changes that you're seeing are an inevitable consequence of driving biology outside of its normal range over a relatively long period of time. So I think there's a duty of care there, and we've got to pay more attention to that. Oh, and one final point, of course, we go back to our junior doctors, who 57% reporting either a crash or a near miss on the drive home. They should be either given or advised to use apps which can detect if the car is moving laterally or if the head is nodding. Many, of course, new cars have this, but many don't. And so, wake-up devices, if you're clearly falling asleep at the wheel, will have an immense impact upon saving the lives of both the drivers and other people who may be on the road.
Someone who's done a lot of night shifts over the years, I kind of have my own strong opinions on it. But I'm curious if it isn't a luxury and it's simply part of your job, and there are industries that just have to provide a 24-hour service. What at least are some things that we definitely should be doing from an individual level to minimize the impact, and maybe the employers, what should they be thinking about?
Well, there will be a lot of differences in impact between individuals. But one area where we have good data is that if individuals have had a sustained good diet, low fat, low sugar, and they regularly exercise, even as long-term night shift workers, they can reduce the chance of developing things like type 2 diabetes and other metabolic issues. So we need to take our health particularly seriously as a night shift worker. And I've advocated that what employers should do is give gym membership passes to night shift workers to encourage them, because it's expensive. Many gyms are expensive, but this would be a great way of improving the longer term health of those individuals. Another area where we don't have data is limiting night shifts. So what you might want to do is say, okay, you can do it for 4 years or 5 years, and then you rotate off for 5 years, and then you maybe rotate back on. We don't have the data to show that that would unwind some of the damage. Intuitively, I think it probably would, but it would be great to get those long-term studies. Now, the problem there, of course, is money. So most people don't really want to do night shift work, but of course, you get paid time and a half or more, and it's often the only way that, let's say, a nurse can combine a job with children. And so the kids can be got off to bed, partners there, looks after them overnight. The nurse is on night shift. They get back in the morning to get the kids back off to school. And that's sort of an economic, drive. That's how you can combine a career with also children and bringing sufficient money into the household. So it's a huge tension. Um, but I think we need to educate and we need to explain the consequences of long-term night shift work to individuals so that they can make an informed decision about whether they should, um, and for how long they should do it. I think the problem is that because we can do night shift, we do, and we do it all the time. And there are many cases where we don't necessarily need a workforce active across the 24-hour day. Our frontline staff, yes, of course. But there are other sectors where I think maybe we should just back off and start to think about whether do we really need this in view of the consequences to these individuals? But again, it's a financial issue. Going back to our doing night shift for 4 or 5 years, then coming off it. Well, would we pay them the same rate? And those are the sorts of questions that need to be answered, I think.